Welcome into the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com, brought to you by Edleys BBQ, the best place to eat in Nashville. Live here from, what do they call it? I never know what this place is called. They've called it, is it still NRG? NRG Stadium in Houston. Also brought to you by Brymac, which sends me on the road to all these great places. I am happy to be here. Witnessed a Titans win, remarkably. Never find a great place in this press box. Very high seating situation. So I've done the best I can. How about that? Titans win. Pretty good effort by this team. 32 points, which we don't see that often. And resilient effort because Will Levis sacked 7 times in the first half, 8 times overall. Blake Bedingfield is going to be looking into what changed from the first half to the second half in his column, which will come out tomorrow before lunch. Titans turn the ball over 3 times, come out of it. Special teams, gaffes again, 80-yard kickoff return right out of the gate to pretty much hand the Texans opening game touchdown. Jaquan Jackson fumbles and gives one away. Levis throws a pick 6, but they survive all of that and find plays and make plays. Great touchdown pass to Nick Westbrook-Akine, 70-yard touchdown pass to Chigakonkwo. A really nicely designed play that worked like a beaut. Interceptions by Brownlee and Murray. 4 second-half sacks after really quiet first half. C.J. Stroud never really looked comfortable. Does not look like a great quarterback. And Will Levis, 3rd consecutive game of really nice play. Win in Houston, Ed Henry says, equals a get-out-of-jail-free card. Certainly is a big deal to Amy Adams-Strunk. Jeff Simmons was telling us how she was wearing her big Houston Oilers belt buckle and showing that off to the team, and that Brian Callahan made a big deal of it during the week. Let's win one for Amy, telling her telling the team what a big deal it is for her and people connected to the Oilers from way back. And so they did that. So hope you guys enjoyed it. It was definitely an enjoyable back and forth game with a lot of points. A lot of points is what we expected when Brian Callahan got to town. We haven't seen that very often. So that was a big deal. Special teams is still a dumpster fire, Dad to the bone says. And I agree with that. That's the wrong thing. Special teams still a dumpster fire. I don't disagree. When's the last time I had a decent kick returner? It has been a while. Ira says, Paul, is NWI better than we have thought, or is he still a 4th or 5th receiver on most teams? I don't know what he is on most teams. I know what he is here, and he has gotten better. He has worked, and he has gotten better, and he's done a great job. And in this offense, which is, his 3rd offense with the 2nd coach, he's really turned into an effective player. And, I've asked them to aspire to be more, but he's become more. And so more power to him. He's a great guy. He's a hard worker. He doesn't have necessarily the speed you want at that position, but if you have speed elsewhere, and I think Ridley has certainly helped him by providing speed elsewhere that needs to be covered in a certain way. A guy like Nick Westbrook-Akine, who's doing things right, is reliable, is in the right position, scoring like he's scoring is phenomenal. Contributing like he's contributing, it's excellent stuff. My question, and I wrote the column, and I hope you'll read it, is really like, what does it mean? They were better than Houston today here, but Houston's 4 games better than them in the standings. Titans are talking like they're going to go on a run here. They haven't won 2 games consecutively in 2 years since November of 2022. Denver and Green Bay back-to-back, which preceded a 7-game losing streak, by the way. But what does one game mean versus the body of work? I think it'd be a mistake for the Titans and certainly for Titans brass to look at that game and say, oh, we're right there with the Texans. And I fear that's what the brass will do. I fear that's what the brass will sell. Amy, look, we're right there. They're not, there are no Will Andersons on this field. I don't know that there's a Nico Collins. There are a lot of things that the Texans have that the Titans don't. Now the Titans played a good game today and got some plays. I mean, Chig's play was fantastic. 2 interceptions help you win time of possession in a big way by almost 10 minutes. So things went very well. But I'd be curious how many of you think like the Titans are on par on a broad scale with the Texans. I don't think many of you would change places with them. Feel free to retweet right now. I know you're following me on Twitter. If you're watching or when you're watching on YouTube, please give me a thumbs up there and subscribe. And if you're listening on Apple, on Spotify, on iHeart, please rate, review, subscribe, do everything you can there to call attention to it. Retweet now on Twitter. As I mentioned, brought to you by Edleys. You need to go there to eat this week ahead of Thanksgiving or before you've got all your Thanksgiving leftovers. I'm pretty sure they have closed out for your ability to order your Thanksgiving dinner from there, but you might try to give them a call and see if you could weasel in. That's what my family and I will be doing, so I'll be stopping at 12 South to pick up my family's Thanksgiving dinner at Edleys BBQ on my way home from work on Wednesday. Sweat and Jarvis Brownlee Jr. are going to be superstars. ECHO. That's not an O. It's a 0550. Very difficult name to read on here. Going to be superstars. Sweat's coming on. Finally got his first sack. I think he can do more as a pass rusher, but certainly growing. Brownlee is fantastic. Still handsy, but really a good player. And a situation here where if they hadn't drafted Brownlee and found Baker, they'd really be a mess with Snead sidelined. He's going to be sidelined now for at least 3 more games. And Owuzi's due back this week. It'll be interesting to see what they do with him now and how he mixes into the cornerbacks. I would presume Baker will sit, but it could be very interesting. McCreary has also been very good. So how do I feel about Pollard's play? I think Pollard has been really good. Last week the Vikings were a special defense that did a great job shutting this team down. But other than that, I like when Pollard gets to be the bell cow like he was today with 22 carries. He's had as many as 28. Spears is out with a concussion this week, but he hasn't done a great deal. I know he's supposed to be a great changeup, but I would give the ball to Pollard as much as possible. And Robert offers a good thing here. Sauce Gardner, a new question comes in, and I keep hitting the wrong one. Sauce Gardner is handsy, Robert says. If Brownlee becomes a star, he'll start to get away with more. That's true. And you're being awfully optimistic, thinking that he could conceivably be a Sauce Gardner type star, but we'll see. D-Gup, Levis seems to be progressing, which makes a case for giving staff time instead of firing everyone like one idiot in town wants to do. Yeah, I mean, we don't need to address the idiot not in the room. Look, Levis's last 3 games. So let me go tell you what I wrote here about Levis's last 3 games. 679 completion percentage, so 68%. 748 yards, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's taken 20 sacks, which is ridiculous. 107.2 passer rating. I mean, if that had been his first 3 games of the year, we would have gone crazy. So I'm not saying that 3 games offsets everything. I'm not saying his anticipation has become fantastic or his pocket feel or anything like that. They can win with 68 completion percentage, with 748 yards over 3 games, with 5 touchdowns versus 2 interceptions. They got to get the sacks down. With 107.2 passer rating, guy, they could win. Now, he was talking after the game like he was at a funeral, while other guys were talking very optimistically about what they're going to do the rest of the way. But I think, things have certainly turned for Levis in the kind of way that you hoped things would turn for Will Levis. And so, know what you can ask for here. The division games, look, are they going to beat Houston a second time at home? That seems optimistic to me. I think they could certainly beat the Colts. I've said all along, I think they're better than the Colts, and they've already lost to the Colts once. Can they beat the Jags? I think they certainly, they and the Jags are knotted there at the bottom. Can they beat the Jags? They certainly should be able to split with the Jags. Washington next week, tough game. Washington's leveled off a little bit, but tough game. And who's the other game? Cincinnati. I mean, I think Cincinnati's a bad matchup. I love Cincinnati, despite the fact that Cincinnati hasn't taken off record-wise. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is obviously a huge problem. And Zach Taylor knows Brian Callahan. Brian Callahan knows Zach Taylor. Who's got that the edge there? I would think that the guy who who's been the head coach for 5-6 years has the edge over the guy who's just getting started. So I think those are 2 very difficult games, even if the Titans somehow manage to run the table in the division. I don't think they're running the table in the division. I think they would probably lose to Houston at home. And those other 3, I think they'd lose at least one of them. So I don't know how much you can read into this one. It's good. They put a full game together. Jeremy Martin with a good question here. What did I think about Mike Brown pulling up on that end zone play? I hated that players change who they are because of one penalty. Same thing that happened to Griffin back in the day. I think Mike Brown probably didn't unload in the end zone the way he would have, but for that call last week. So it did probably have a bearing. And it wasn't the same. I don't think it was a third down play. At least Levis isn't making any stupid plays, Robert says, which is true. The pick 6 wasn't brilliant, but didn't kill them. So how is the special team so consistently bad? Nobody can figure it out. I rained on Callahan's parade a little bit today by asking about it. And he kind of joked that I rained on his parade. Something always goes wrong. So everybody, a lot of you really want to see Cedric Gray. Well, Cedric Gray's starting point is special teams. And Cedric Gray had Pierce wrapped up and let him slip out of his arms. And then, he was in that huge scrum. I don't know why every single guy on special teams needs to come to the ball there and not, I guess, you think he's tackled, you all come to the ball. But then every single guy comes to the ball and he backs up literally out of that. Cedric Gray lets him slip out of his hands. He backs up and then he goes around, and Mike Brown has left that lane open over there amongst other people. And he runs right to where it looked like Mike Brown. Mike Brown got blocked and boom. So that's a problem. If I'm the GM, SR, or IV, it's like talking to an alien or a bot. Who's my quarterback next year? I would, find a veteran guy who could compete with Levis. My draft pick just took a hit, but I would try to deal down in the draft, see if I can't get more picks and address the big 3 needs: right tackle, edge rusher, wide receiver, and and do that. Heath wants to know, I hadn't touched on this yet. I haven't talked about it. Any comment on the Rapaport Mularkey reporting? Add some context. I knew this story, and I thought I had written this story. I went back to read the Mularkey story, which I wrote, I think, 4 years ago. I sat with Mularkey. This was 2 years after he was fired, I guess. 2018. Does that add up? You guys do the math. So I went and stayed after the Jacksonville game, and I met Mularkey at a coffee shop. I wrote 3 articles for people who subscribe to paulkuharsky.com. One of the reasons you should be a subscriber. And I wrote one about the circumstances of his firing, where John Robinson really stabbed him in the back and created a huge distraction that really was uncalled for. If they were going to fire John Robinson, if they're going to fire Mike Mularkey, that was fine. But why you would start dropping hints in the national media ahead of your first playoff game in like 7 years, as a massive distraction. So if John Robinson was concerned with distractions, and he always said he was concerned with distractions, I don't understand why he would cause a huge distraction. And it was a huge distraction because it was all the buzz going into that game. And it was the first question after they beat Kansas City for their first playoff win in a long time. Joe Rexrode's first question was about it. And Mularkey, had asked Robinson, he told me, if he couldn't quiet it down. And Robinson said, yeah, I'll work to quiet it down. And he wasn't working to quiet it down. He was leaving the rumor out there to be alive and everything. And so when Mularkey knew he was getting fired, this is a week after they lost to the Patriots in New England, as basically an FU to the Titans, he didn't talk directly to Rapaport the way he told it to me. He had his agent talk to Rapaport, and Rapaport had been dealing with the Titans and was dropping a lot of the rumors about what was going to happen and that he was in trouble and going to be fired. And so he had his guy tell Rapaport that he was signing an extension, which is a straight up lie. So, it's not cool from a journalist point of view to be lied to. And it wasn't the coolest thing for Mularkey to do. But Mularkey wasn't concerned with Ian Rapaport, and he wasn't concerned with lying. He was pissed at the Titans, and he wanted to get them back. And so there was mass confusion that morning because Rapaport was reporting that Mularkey was back, and the Titans fired him shortly thereafter. But Rapaport didn't do anything to check it out, and it goes to show you how these national guys just repeat what they're told and don't do any checking. There's no second sourcing whatsoever. So that was that story. Well, if it had happened to me, I probably there's a reason Mike Mularkey didn't do it to me. I'll say that. Because he didn't want to do it to somebody that he was close to or had a relationship to, but he felt like I'm in his head now, but he felt like Rapaport didn't have any problem putting all this stuff out there from Robinson, and I don't think he was checking in with Mularkey during that. Not that not that Robinson was wrong. He's getting it from the horse's mouth. When you get stuff from the horse's mouth, you feel pretty comfortable about using it. Well, that's one thing, Jim. If there are rumors that Robinson wanted his own coach way earlier, that doesn't mean that he has to engage in it and get it out there and participate in it and create it. And it wouldn't have had near the volume that it had. And those rumors that Robinson wanted his own coach, by the way, started, I'm pretty sure, with John Robinson. If John Robinson doesn't start talking to people about wanting his own coach, there's not much fuel to it. Nickname guys. NPF, down, down, down. NWI, up, up, up. They're not so much nickname guys. They're 3-letter guys, let's say. I was done with NPF after he missed a block and did a split. That was a while ago. NPF certainly didn't have a good day today. They felt good enough about him that they didn't rotate him with a juke rule from what I can recall. And, second half things cleaned up. I think Levis threw quicker in the second half. I think they probably told him to throw quicker. Howie the Titan. What do they see as possible reason why Levis has taken this positive turn? Your hypothesis is that he's noticing how safeties think and play coverage. Well, I don't know if you can notice how a guy thinks. Maybe he's recognizing what the safeties are doing better. I didn't buy the sitting him is good for him thing, but clearly sitting him was good for him, and he got to see some things and discover some things. And I think he learned from Rudolph in a way that was healthy for him. But I certainly think they're calling stuff now. I mean, they've certainly opened things up. How are these big throws that we didn't see for that long all of a sudden available? I think there's certainly been a change in the coaching philosophy. You can't tell me all of a sudden these last 3 games, game plan specifically, last 2 in particular, there have been all of these holes in the defense available for him to throw into. I mean, I know Minnesota blitzed a lot, which left advantageous coverage. But Houston, I haven't looked at the numbers, but didn't feel like they needed to blitz a lot with Anderson coming so strong and Hunter coming so strong. So, there was plenty of room. Yeah, I agree here. Jeremy Martin said Levis taking the deep shots to Ridley is helping him a lot. It certainly is. And Ridley becoming more reliable is helping everybody a lot. Tremaine, I'm not talking to you anymore based on your one thing that kills me. Robot Man here says the touchdown to Chig was a designed play. Of course it was a designed play. Callahan has definitely simplified the scheme upon Levis's return. The arm talent, though, is otherworldly. Great arm talent. It wasn't a freelance play. They rolled out, and clearly Chig was the target. Callahan, I asked him kind of what the expectation was on that play, that he thought that the double team for Ridley on the other side really, really helped open it up. You may get into more of that tomorrow. NPF equals not pro football, says Titans Con. Not bad. Hooker, there was no indication that he was anything but sick. So I presume so, Sammy. Yeah, TK, I can't get into contract details about NWI right now without getting out a calculator and looking at for some comps and stuff. No, he will have interest in free agency, I would think, particularly if Mike Vrabel is back in the league. I would think that there would be interest. Though Mike Vrabel, spearheaded him not having, they offered him below the tender a couple years ago, and he didn't take the offer, and then he turned around in a day and came back and did take the offer. He's a long way removed from that, but I think there'd be interest in the market. He's not getting some big contract, but he's getting a contract. Is the Texans offensive line about as bad as the Titans? No. I don't think it's great, and the interior is problematic. And the Titans didn't get to Stroud at all in the first half. Landry's sack was the safety where, there was a lot of trouble with that play call and design, and they were in real bad position there. Ali Gay got a sack, though, so that was pretty remarkable. I'm seeing the ESPN wrote a story about Amy Adams Strunk moving to tears. You're not going to read that story at paulkuharsky.com. No offense to Teron Davenport or anybody. I just don't give a shit. Do you? First off, I know it's going to be well covered at the Titans website and apparently at ESPN. Might be worth a one-line mention. I'm not giving Amy Adams Strunk any attention until she like appears and answers some questions. I think that's the worst thing we could do is give her attention for crying over an emotional Titans win. I mean, see, this is kind of ridiculous, I think, from Focus. Is Callie listening to the offensive coordinator more or less? Is that where the improvement occurred? I mean, this is like tinfoil hat stuff. So the offense gets better, and you're guessing at rationale, and you think that maybe it's Nick Holtz, that Callahan wasn't listening to him, but he's listening to him now. First off, if that was it, we would have no way of knowing. But I certainly have. So, I mean, before everybody hated Nick Holtz, and now we're coming up with a conspiracy theory where Nick Holtz was being held back, but he's now being released and allowed to give his input into the offense, and that is what is keying Levis's resurgence. I think that's just nonsense out of nowhere. Yeah, I think Awuzie S. Rob is asking, do I think Cheeto is back next week? And what are my early thoughts on the Commanders matchup? I think the Titans have problems with quarterbacks who are very mobile, which is Jaden Daniels' thoughts. I think they're much better than the Titans. And I think Awuzie is back. I don't know how he fits into what they're doing. How close is Nick Folk? I don't understand that question. How close to what? What is the strength of this team right now? Well, Pollard's been a strength all season. Right now, you could say like some explosive pass plays are becoming a strength. Certainly have grown from the Chargers game to the Vikings game to this game. Explosive pass plays have been a big feature. Defensively, they can be stingy. They don't turn the ball over enough, though they got 2 nice ones today, so that's progress. They don't sack the quarterback enough. Today they got 4, so that's nice progress. So, I mean, they're still developing. Gary, good to see you. I thought the team rebounded, Gary says, well after some of the mistakes and turnovers. Levis looked more comfortable in the pocket, but he has to eliminate the sacks. He was also talking about, how many times did I get tackled like within a yard or 2 of the line of scrimmage as he was trying to escape. I think he thinks, on some of those, maybe I could flip it and get a yard or 2, and it could be at least a positive play. And he's right. I mean, on a couple of those where he started to escape the pocket and went down, at least they weren't big sacks. Some of them weren't 7-8 yard sacks. And, if you flip that from a 1 or 2 yard loss to a 1 or 2 yard gain, better to not be a negative play. That's not nothing. It's not a quarterback being tackled, but it's not a sack. So that's something. Only 2 penalties in the second half also, which is a big achievement, and a much less penalty offensive day overall, right? Would I go edge or right tackle in the first round? I'd consider wide receiver there too. I don't know. It depends on what's there. You can't predetermine what you're taking in the first round, where you don't know what your draft spot is, who's available, et cetera, et cetera. I would hate for them to have to take a right tackle in the first round, given how much capital they've spent in the first 3 rounds on offensive line. You go back to Isaiah Wilson, Dylan Radins, Nicholas Petit-Frere, Latham, and that's in the last, 4 years? So that's 2 firsts, a second, and a third. Am I missing anybody there? That's within 4 or 5 years. That is a huge amount of draft capital to spend on the offensive line. And they've spent 2 first rounders in their entire history as the Titans on edge rushers. And one of them is Javon Curse, who is the first year of their history. The other being Derek Morgan. So, I mean, that's been forever. They got to rush the passer better. Now, I mean, you know, the sack problem is a gigantic problem. But, you know, Bill Callahan should be able to find in an average year, and I don't know if this is an average year, in an average year, you would think the Titans could find a starting right tackle in the second round. In the third round, I'm hoping they get a third rounder back or another second rounder or whatever they can figure out in a trade. What time is it here? It's 7 o'clock. I have an 8:55 flight. Coming back tonight. Very rare. 55 out of awful day. Latham. It's good, Patrick, that you're bringing this up. He did not have a good day. And so you would hope that Latham against Will Anderson is a battle that you're going to see twice a year for a long time. You would think a couple contracts worth of Anderson and a couple contracts worth of Latham, 2 or 3 for both. And the first one didn't go in Latham's column by any means. Number 1 pick needs to be a quarterback as bad as it's a tackle, Patrick said. Well, we're kind of talking about if it's not a quarterback. And I don't love the quarterbacks. I'm not deep into draft stuff. I don't get as deep into draft stuff as other people do when the time comes. But I think it'd be okay to fix all this other stuff. If you're getting the Levis that you have today, and he's got a right tackle, and the other teams are rushing, and the defense is rushing the passer better, you're fixing special teams, and they don't give up an 80-yard kickoff return to open the game. This is a lot better looking football team. Fatty Matty wants to know, in my opinion, is there a correlation between being an Alabama fan or a Tennessee fan and the stupid conspiracy theories? I'm not getting them as much from people that I know to be Wisconsin fans, Minnesota fans. After right tackle, what is the second worst position on the team? I mean, without running through the roster, is anybody going to fight me if I say edge rusher? I mean, Landry's been largely invisible. Key had that nice burst of three plus games and has gone back to being quiet. I don't understand why he can't sustain it. Ali Gay had a sack today as a backup, but Ali Gay and Jalen Harrell as your 3 and 4. I mean, there's just not enough burn to any of that edge in terms of being threatening. And then you look at it compared to what Houston has going there with Hunter and Anderson. I mean, there's very little comparison. I understand the Titans are better inside than they are, but a lot of Pollard compliments in here. So read one so everybody can relax on Pollard. TK says, I wasn't a huge fan of the signing at first because of his injury history with Dallas, but I have to say Pollard is a hell of a back. He's been probably the best player on the team this year, all year. He's been the best player on the team. And, his injury history really was one bad injury. So you got to be careful of calling one injury history. Jeremy, I think smartly says you can't pick a quarterback just to pick a quarterback. I'm not overly impressed with any of them. And I think that's fine. You can't just put a comment with one name on it. I thought for the most part, we've gotten over this, but if you give me a comment with one name on it, I don't know what that means. That they're asking me to just talk about a guy. That's not how we're going to work in here. I'm Paul Kuharsky at paulkuharsky.com. You need to be a member of my site if you're truly a fan of the Tennessee Titans. I've covered the team since it played next door, I think that direction, in the Astrodome. When I was a little kid, my brother-in-law and sister, I think they were dating at the time, took a cross-country trip, and they visited the Astrodome. They took a tour, and they brought me back an Astros hat. I was too young probably to realize that I had no interest in an Astros hat because I wasn't an Astros guy, so I wore it for a little while. But it was because they were at the Astrodome, which was like the coolest thing ever to see the Astrodome. And they told me all kinds of stories about the Astrodome. And like 15 years later, I was covering the last year of the Houston Oilers playing in the Astrodome, which is amazing. I remember like a kitchen fire there and the smell of it still, and how few people were in it. It was pretty ridiculous. It's probably more than 15 years. It's probably 20, 22. At any rate, I was here all the way back then. So my institutional knowledge is unparalleled on this beat. Nobody else in the Titans media corps was here. But I'm also the smartest, most insightful guy on the team. I've got Mike Herndon covering the team. I've got Mike Herndon writing for me. Blake Bedingfield, stuff you can't get anywhere else. It costs you $7.50 a month, which is nothing, the price of a fancy cup of coffee or a cocktail. I do these podcasts tonight, sponsored by Edleys. Thursday afternoons from Edleys, sponsored by Edleys and Zen Sports. Tomorrow afternoon, a football show with Braden Gall. I see a lot of you are here, so clearly you like it. So come over to the site and join. Give it as a gift for Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever. We'll get to the bottom of what everything means. Good to see you. Ed says Latham looked like a rookie today for the first game since game one. I agree. Had a bad game today. Did settle down in the second half. Robert says apparently it's a very weak tackle class. Either got to go to free agency or rely on Callahan to identify a day 2 or 3 guy. Well, day 2's second round, so that's no small thing. Josh says he thinks it's too quick to give up on Levis. Got 6 more games of evidence here. I think that's a good bit of evidence. If he can play the next 6 games, like he's played these 3 games, that'll be 9 strong games. Inside linebacker, the second worst position on the team, Sergeant Bubbles said. I mean, I think they know what Kenneth Murray can do. He had an interception today. It's not a good coverage player. I don't know why they were so drawn to not a good coverage player to replace Azeez Al-Shaair, who's here. Pretty good player, but completely different guy than Kenneth Murray. Ernest Jones, I liked a lot. I thought Jerome Baker would be better. He was not very good today. But they have a bunch of young guys. I don't know if any of them are going to turn into starting caliber guys in Otis Reese, in Cedric Gray, and James Williams. Those guys are going to need to identify themselves by last year. I don't think any of them are particularly sterling special teamers, which is what I want from my backup inside linebackers. Sam says, I think a true edge threat only helps Simmons and Sweat. I'd love Carter in the first to play edge. Find a right tackle in free agency or day 2. Hey, I mean, if you can get a big time edge guy, and you know, he would also help Landry, I would think. But there's something feels like Landry and this defense or defensive staff don't fit, because he's really been. Tell me if you feel differently, but he's really not been any kind of steady factor in this defense. It's not been around the quarterback, and I just feel like I don't know. He was very much a Vrabel guy. He spoke glowingly about Denard Wilson and about this staff and this team and the freedom and all of that stuff, but it's not translating play wise. Titan Kong is absolutely wrong here. I'm thinking we need to go another corner for our first defensive choice. Then I'll be comfortable with an edge. Another corner? What are you talking about? Brownlee's been outstanding. Baker is a capable starter. Cheeto, I think, is still under contract. Snead, there is no getting away from next year. That's 4 corners, even if you only had the 3. And McCreary's very solid in the slot. Corner is their deepest position on the roster. If you draft a corner, he would not start. It would be a huge mistake. Spencer says adding a Will Anderson type talent in the draft and a healthy Snead Cheeto would take the defense from average to top 5 next year. Well, a Will Anderson type. Well, Will Anderson is not a common guy. He's also top 3 pick. Titans may not be drafting in the top 3, but yeah, adding a big time edge talent would do a lot for a lot of people. It's just a bummer, I think, that they're still at a stage where you're working inside out, right? But like I said, they should be fine at corner. Safety is what they need, right? You need a guy next to Hooker. I think Diggs probably done. If the injury doesn't end him, I mean, he was a stopgap at any rate, I think. And I don't know that these guys that have, Mike Brown or Julius Wood are going to be solving your issues long term. Sunmaker, I was wondering if a first pick wide receiver would help with the sack numbers, but I also want an edge defender. Well, got to go in order. I mean, we all know the Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell decision that Cincinnati made. But, this quarterback is getting hammered. Mike Dunn. So are we saying that all the sacks are due more to the bad OL rather than Levis holding on to the ball too long? Why do all of the sacks have to be one or the other? Some of the sacks are him holding the ball too long. Some of the sacks, there was one sack that I think it was Anderson who beat Latham very quickly. He had no chance on. So certainly a better offensive line would solve a lot of issues for Levis. Colt Anderson, I think, is safe as can be. Answering another question. Here's S. Rob's list of needs. Right tackle, edge, inside linebacker, and wide receiver. Today's game, though, I forgetly having a stroke. Today's game, though, I forgot completely Traylon was still on this team. He's not on the active roster. He's on IR, so there's no reason to remember him. And there's no reason, I don't think, to factor him into anything going forward. Inside linebacker, I think it's crazy to spend significant draft capital on an inside linebacker. Yeah, you guys don't give me much context. I asked who I was forgetting. Forgetting from what? You're telling me I was forgetting Skoronski, but now I don't know what I was forgetting him from. Give me all of it in one thing. I haven't memorized anything we're talking about. I got hundreds of comments on the side. Patrick says, failure of this staff to not get the ball to Chigmore this year. Seems like a tight end that's quick enough to get open would help a young quarterback. I don't know. If they throw it to Chig, then they're taking away receptions from Nick, or they're taking away receptions from Ridley. Like, who's getting the ball that you don't want getting the ball? I'd be fine with Boyd not getting the ball that much and those going to Chig. But I knew this was going to be a wide receiver-driven team, and I don't really have a problem for it. G says Astros over the Yankees. Yeah, I didn't even see the Astros in the playoffs this year, so you're talking about a lot of old news. Again, I think focus. You're very reasonable. You've been in here a long time. I like you. But you can't predetermine what pick of what position and what round. You don't know who's available. You don't know how good they are. You don't know what your draft slot is. You don't know what other people around you need. You can't predetermine all that stuff. It's silly. Find that hat. I was won the Astros hat from my sister's Astrodome trip. I'm one to save a lot of stuff. My mother was not one to save a lot of stuff. I guarantee you that hat is long gone. I've been a fan since 1994, CA1 says. Saw this amazing upset live today, so I'm guessing Callie, Colt, and Levis tried to give it away. But today, Denard's defense added sacks and turnovers with the final stand to solidify the W. I don't know that Levis tried to give it away. I mean, that pick six wasn't, on the level of the other mistakes he's made. And he made a lot of good plays. Had a passer rating over 100. I think Colt, I'm with you on Colt. I don't know, how Colt is allowed to, again, Doris, like I'm saying, it can't predetermine what round. I think, should they consider a receiver in the first round? Yes. If they don't take one in the first round, should they consider one in the second round? Yes. If they have a third round pick and they haven't taken one, they should consider one there. Yes. All the rounds until they take one. But I can't say which. CA's joining because I went to the Dome. CA, I presumed you remember. That's a shame. Welcome. Come. Come to the light. Come to the light. Come to the light. All right, I got to get out of here soon. I got a flight to catch. What time is it? 7:13. Few more minutes. We're going to be a little bit shorter today. Feels like the Titans can't use checkdowns as much due to the protection issues, running backs staying into block, which hurts when half the reads and can lead to more sacks. Well, I didn't get the second half of that, Sergeant Bubbles. I think the throwing the running backs has been very unsuccessful overall for the Titans, and it's been a huge disappointment. Huge disappointment. Focus did not go to Edleys when in town last week. That's another reason you have to be a member to make up for that. Definitely have to check it out next time. Let me know when you're in town. We'll try to get together. Yeah. Josh wants T. Higgins. The Titans don't need another aging receiver. They need a young guy who's their guy, who they develop. T. Higgins is a Bengals guy who they develop. Let somebody else pay T. Higgins a bunch of money. Draft a young receiver who's going to be a big-time guy for you, who's going to be at rookie prices. Joseph Mitchell's very happy. I'm very happy that people are very happy. I wanted some games for Titans fans to be able to sit and enjoy competitive from the start to the end, and you got one today, and I'm happy for you. Landry's invisibility, Sammy, I don't know what's going on there. Yeah, this is a still Billy like statement, CA, that Callie should have retained Terrell Williams. Terrell Williams was free to go where he wanted, I think. Shouldn't have mattered if he was a variable guy. He might have been under contract, but if he asked to leave and had another offer, they did the honorable thing and let him go. He didn't want to be a part of the mess that was here, was my understanding. There was some stuff that was up with the old coaching staff. They had some objections to the way they were treated, and he wanted out. He's a better defensive line coach than Tracy Rocker, for sure. I'll give you that. But there is a very one-sided thing where people say, the Titans should have kept so-and-so. Titans should have kept Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry is a free agent. You can't keep someone when both of you are free. I'm free to try to retain you, and you're free to go where you want. Well, it's a two-way street there. I think with Terrell Williams, it was a two-way street there. Do owners and GMs really talk more often across the league to the media than here? Is this the quietest leadership in the league? Keep hearing the local media bring it up. I don't care how much they talk in the rest of the league. You're Titans fans. You should demand to hear from them. And you shouldn't give a shit if they're talking in Detroit or not, or in Indianapolis or in Jacksonville or in Houston or wherever. And I'm sick of hearing it from Titans PR. Well, they're talking as much as the Patriots talk. They're talking as much. I don't give a shit. We're not in New England. It's weak. It's weak. Rand Carthon's a relationship guy. That's what I'm told. Not so much by Rand, because I don't get to talk to Rand, but by everybody around Rand and by everybody that told me all about how great Rand was going to be. Well, if Rand's a relationship guy, he should have some relationships with the media. He has one with local media. That's not enough. He needs to have relationships with all of them. Now, I had a fight with him early. That was probably my doing. I worked to get out of that. And I think we got onto equal footing. But then as soon as he's criticized, he goes away. Can't handle any criticism. Well, then you don't belong in the NFL. Go to CFL. Go to college football where you can be a dictator. It's bullshit. Sick of it. And I'm pretty sick of Amy too. Like, no sense treating Amy with kid gloves. There's going to be no payoff for it either. Hide behind Mike Keith and Amy Wells. Fuck that. Titan Kong, if you think I have any idea what this means, like you think that I've memorized everything you've said in here, I've got a couple thousand people in here. What's the deal with Burks? He's on IR. Like, got a conspiracy on Burks now? It wasn't a Lions-Bengals trade, Sammy's talking about, I think, Chase and Penne. It was just the decision. Yeah, Detroit's doing, but they're both doing quite well. I mean, Chase was a good choice for Cincinnati, and Sewell was an excellent choice for Detroit. Sam says, Levis just had a cool, calm aura and demeanor today. Though he had to panic a couple times. Carrie Underwood singing. That means I need to head for the airport. I'm going to take 3 more, and we're going to call it here. For some reason, this damn computer isn't charging. Pulled the plug. Great. MB says, I think the Titans should just take the best player on the board, use free agency to try to fill the holes. People say this periodically. It's nonsense. If the best player on the board plays Tavondre Sweat's position, they can't take him because he's going to sit behind Tavondre Sweat. If the best player on the board plays J.C. Latham's position, they can't take him because they just spent a first-round pick on J.C. Latham. So there's certain spots you cannot play this best player on the board stuff. Even the best teams in the league that really do try to do best player available, do best player available except at these positions where we have locked in guys who are starting for at least 3 years. It just doesn't happen. I want somebody besides Jackson returning as well. I mean, the guy goes, he's so interested in going horizontal and so not interested in going vertical. I just don't understand it. What was the crowd like? A double play away asks. Titans fans show up. Crowd was poor, and somebody told me there were the fewest number of Titans fans at a Titans Texans game in Houston that there've ever been, which I don't know. Thank you for the compliment on the shirt and jacket. I'll let CA speak right there while I'm looking for what's going on. Yeah, we'll finish here with Chase. You have to be so stacked to be able to do best player available. And that's the final part of this, Chase. So thank you for bringing it up. When the Titans took Keith Bullock, they were stacked, right? They had such a solid lineup and no real need that they could afford to take a middle linebacker, an inside linebacker, because they already had somebody there and they could just wait on Keith. And they waited 1.5 or 2 years before he had a full-time role. So you have to be stacked like that if you're really, truly going best player available. And the Titans were in position at that stage to do that. They really didn't have a starting lineup hole. I don't know enough about Daniel Jones outside of how bad he's been. Would he be a good fit at backup quarterback? And I'm not interested in backup quarterback. I'm interested in compete with Levis quarterback. And I think I've seen Mike Herndon say that he likes that idea of Daniel Jones competing with Will Levis next year. So I would if Mike likes that, I would explore it. Puka Nacua is a good example, but the Rams were pretty stacked. I'm not excited about Jameis Winston. People love Jameis Winston for some reason. I think it's not a real smart quarterback. I'd like smarter quarterback than that. I have to look again at the list come through. Like, did Jacoby Brissett sign for more than 1 year? A lot of these guys, their ceilings and their things, even Flacco settled down. I do think, and I've said this before, there's a pool of quarterbacks who are sitting now for good coaches. In this pool, you're going to hate to hear some of these names, but and I'm going to forget his name now. Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson's sitting for Sean Payton this year. That's the kind of guy. I'm not saying he's going to hit, but a guy like that's probably going to hit somewhere next year. Probably start out as a backup or a bridge or a competition guy, and he might turn out to be Sam Darnold, who I know has faded some, or Geno Smith or Baker Mayfield. There's a talent pool now of those guys. Not all of them are going to hit, but some of them are going to hit. Eat at Edleys BBQ this week. There are 8 locations around Nashville. It's the best barbecue you can find. Trust me. I know a lot of you know it, so you need to go there because of this podcast. And I know a lot of you don't know about it, and you need to go there because of this podcast. You also need to subscribe to paulkuharsky.com. $7.50 a month. It's nothing. You won't even notice it. Happy Thanksgiving to you as well. Duck Falling says that. I think I'm going to broadcast on Friday. I could broadcast on Wednesday. I haven't decided. I'll keep you posted. It's good to see all of you. I appreciate the good crowd. Enjoy the win. Hey, something to be happy about for Titans fans. That's fantastic. Great talking with you. Don't block the box. Be sure to lock your locks. Take care, everybody. I really appreciate it.